Earlier this week, the Trump administration issued additional sanctions against Venezuela and continued to express support for opposition leader Juan Guaido. Nicaragua was also described as an illegitimate and authoritarian regime by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who visited various Caribbean countries this week in an effort to gain their support for U.S. policies in Latin America, a move which has divided Caribbean nations. To discuss this a little further, we are being joined now by Dr. Jeb Sprague. He's a research associate at UC Riverside in California and author of several books, including Globalizing the Caribbean, Political Economy, Social Change, and Transnational Capitalist Class. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Sprague. So first,
thanks so much for having me.
The U.S. obviously has enormous influence in this nearby region. It's so close to our shores. Can you explain why leaders of Caribbean nations are so divided by recent U.S. demands to support what they view as regime change efforts in Latin America?
So the U.S. under Pompeo is really trying to intensify divisions in the region. And there's a long history of this. The history of foreign policy in the Caribbean, U.S. foreign policy is legendary. And we can really go back to the creation of CARICOM and what was called the Treaty of Chaguaramas, where the different countries of the region signed off on having a unified foreign policy. And we see different periods in the history where this hasn't worked out. So certain countries like Trinidad refused to go along with the invasion of Grenada in the early 1980s. Other countries took part. And so the U.S. is really trying to intensify those divisions today. And a lot of countries in the region, like the Dominican Republic and Haiti, they have a lot of internal problems. And so the U.S. is taking advantage of that. The Dominican Republic, they have $1 billion corruption scandal with Punta Catalina power plant, with Odebrecht, one of the biggest corruption scandals in the history of the region. So they're really offering deals like to Jamaica to try to get them into the fold of this U.S. project against Venezuela and the ALBA states in the region. They've cut off financial interactions with Venezuela. They're blocking their oil exports. They've even blocked at certain points of medicines from getting into the country. So it's really a policy of ruination, of total economic terror being launched against Venezuela. And Pompeo and Trump want allies in this endeavor.
And, you know, and you just pointed this out, given how much economic influence that the U.S. has on the Caribbean area, are you at all surprised that Trinidad, Barbados, and even little tiny Grenada, they are now refusing to support U.S. policies in Latin America? I mean, even the Prime Minister of Barbados, who is the head of CARICOM, refused to attend Pompeo's meeting in Jamaica. I mean, what do you make of this?
So PM Motley of Barbados and PM Rowley of Trinidad, they've sided with Ralph Gonsalves, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with the Prime Minister of Guyana, with a number of other smaller countries like Barbuda and Dominica, in not going to this meeting in Jamaica that Pompeo is having with these other countries that the U.S. has really worked into bringing into its project. And so it's a brave stance by these prime ministers, but it's also one, it fits into the history of struggle in the Caribbean and of leaders there and populations knowing the legacy of colonialism, of U.S. intervention, of militarism, and going along with international law and really promoting the region as a zone of peace. So they are not going along with that U.S. project. Trump met with some of these leaders in Mar-a-Lago back in January, earlier in 2019, and so now they're trying to re-amplify this project against Venezuela. And so we see that happening right now.
And real quickly, while I still have you here, Haiti is obviously another Caribbean country we just simply don't hear enough about. They have a corrupt U.S.-backed dictator. Protests there have been met with extreme violence and repression. You've written a book about Haiti as well. We know that there's extreme poverty and horrible devastation across the island of Haiti. What's the current situation there? Can you give us an update?
So President Jovenel Moïse, the president in Haiti, he's really suffering what we would call a crisis of legitimacy. When he came into office, he had one of the, I believe, the lowest, or not one of the lowest turnouts in any presidential election in the region and even worldwide. So his base of support is very small, but because he's sided with this project against Venezuela and has recognized Trump's, pick, Guaido in Venezuela, because of that, Jovenel Moïse has received the utmost support of the Trump administration to stay in power. A lot of weapons have flowed into the country. There's a lot of ongoing corruption, and he did not hold elections. So the country's parliament is no longer seated in Haiti. So he's running the country through executive order. He's saying he's going to redo the country's constitution on his own, and he's blaming that for the country's problems. But it's really, for anyone that knows the history of Haiti, from going to the coup in 2004 to the U.S. support for dictatorship in the early 1990s, back to the Duvalier dynasty, and how the OAS and the U.S. went in 2011 to manipulate the election so that the country could have Michel Martelly and neo-Duvalierists in power. Anyone that knows that history knows the biggest problem Haiti has is the influence of the United States, is the role of foreign intervention in blocking the country's development from happening.
Yeah, certainly a lot more happening in the Caribbean than what people think. They think beaches and vacation, but there's a lot of turmoil happening. Dr. Jeb Sprague, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. Hope to see you back.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.